Hello everyone, and welcome to Life Story 999. Today, we bring you a story that will grip your heart and challenge your perspective. A tale of prejudice, misunderstanding, and ultimately, justice served. It's a story that asks hard questions. How far will we go when faced with authority? What happens when judgment is passed without evidence? We'd love to hear your thoughts, so please share them in the comments below. It was a crisp afternoon in downtown Greenwood, a charming city where friendly smiles often masked deeper tensions. Dana Johnson, an elegant woman in her early 30s, had just left her favorite coffee shop, a tranquil oasis she visited often to take a break from her demanding routine. Dana, married to Roger Johnson, the respected commissioner of Greenwood, never flaunted her connection. She wanted to be treated like everyone else, without special privileges. As Dana approached her car, her peaceful moment shattered. Two police officers, Smith and Carter, appeared out of nowhere, blocking her path. Their eyes were sharp with suspicion, and their demeanor was far from welcoming. "Ma'am, we need to ask you a few questions," Officer Smith said, his voice clipped and stern. Dana felt a surge of confusion, but she kept her composure. "Is there a problem, officers?" she asked, her tone polite, though a hint of unease colored her voice. "We've had reports of suspicious activity in this area," Officer Carter added, his gaze cold and unyielding. "We need to search you." Dana blinked in disbelief. "Suspicious activity? I just left the cafe. Why would you need to search me?" she questioned, trying to reason with them. Officer Smith's expression darkened. "Turn around, ma'am. Don't make this harder than it has to be." Reluctantly, Dana complied, the chill of the handcuffs biting into her wrists. Passers-by hurried past, their eyes averted, unwilling to get involved, a silent testament to how quickly justice can be overshadowed by fear. Dana's heart pounded with a mix of fear and humiliation as the officers aggressively patted her down, yanking at her coat and rifling through her handbag. She knew she had done nothing wrong, yet here she was, treated like a common criminal on a public street, with eyes all around her silently watching. She took a deep breath, forcing herself to stay calm. She wasn't going to let them see her break. "I'd like to call my husband," Dana said, her voice steady despite the storm within her. Officer Smith let out a cynical laugh, the smirk on his face widening. "Oh, and who might that be? Go ahead, call him. Let's see who comes running to save you." Dana refused to react to his mockery. She pulled out her phone, her fingers trembling slightly as she dialed. The line connected almost instantly. "Roger, it's me," she said, unable to keep the quiver entirely out of her voice. "Dana, what's happening?" Roger's voice, calm but edged with concern, was a comfort in the chaos around her. "I'm at the corner of Maple and Oak," Dana explained, her words spilling out quickly. "The police are searching me. They're treating me like I've done something wrong." Her voice cracked, the weight of the humiliation hitting her again. "I'll be there in 5 minutes," Roger said, his voice suddenly taking on a tone of authority. "Stay calm." Dana hung up, inhaling deeply to steady herself. She knew Roger would come, and that he wouldn't let this slide. But the sting of being publicly humiliated lingered, her heart heavy with the unfairness of it all. Officer Smith and Carter's smug expressions remained, their confidence an unspoken message. They believed themselves beyond reproach. Just as Officer Carter was about to add another cutting remark, the sound of screeching tires broke the tense silence. A sleek black SUV pulled up to the curb, and the door swung open with a force that spoke volumes. Out stepped Roger Johnson, tall, imposing, and unmistakably authoritative in his commissioner's uniform. His gaze locked onto the officers, eyes blazing with a fury that made them freeze. The arrogance drained from their faces as they recognized who was approaching. "Commissioner Johnson," Officer Smith stammered, his bravado vanishing, replaced by unease. Roger barely acknowledged him, his gaze softening only when it turned to Dana. "Are you all right?" he asked, his voice gentle as he stepped close to her. Dana nodded, though the burn of what had happened was still fresh. "I'm fine," she said, her voice steady, though her eyes betrayed the pain she felt. She gestured toward the officers. "But this was completely unnecessary." Roger turned back to face the officers, his eyes icy. "You too," he said, his voice sharp and authoritative. "Explain yourselves." The street was silent, the weight of accountability suddenly hanging heavily in the air. Officer Smith swallowed hard, his previous confidence now a distant memory. His voice wavered as he tried to explain himself. "Sir, we had reports of suspicious activity, and she matched the description," he mumbled, avoiding Roger's piercing glare. Roger raised an eyebrow, his voice tinged with disbelief and fury. "Match the description?" he echoed. "Did she resist you? Did she do anything that could possibly justify the way you treated her?" Officer Carter, who had stood silently up to this point, shook his head, his voice barely above a whisper. "No, sir." Roger took a deliberate step forward, his presence overpowering. The tension was palpable, and the two officers visibly shrank under the weight of his authority. "Then tell me," Roger continued, his voice rising, "why did you treat her like a criminal? Was it because she's a black woman, standing in the wrong place at the wrong time? Is that your version of justice?" Officer Smith opened his mouth, but no words came out. The street, which had been bustling only moments before, had fallen into a stunned silence. Onlookers had gathered, some whispering among themselves, others simply staring, unsure of what would happen next. Roger took a breath, pulling out his phone, his expression unreadable. He dialed quickly, his eyes never leaving the two officers. "This is Commissioner Johnson," he said, his voice cold and authoritative. "I need internal affairs at the corner of Maple and Oak immediately. Officers Smith and Carter are to be suspended pending investigation." The blood drained from Officer Smith's face, his confidence now completely gone. "Sir, please," he began, his voice cracking under the weight of desperation. Roger cut him off with a sharp wave of his hand. "Save it," he snapped, his eyes narrowing. "You didn't mean to what? Harass my wife? Treat her like she was less than human? Or did you simply not mean to get caught?" Officer Carter finally spoke, his voice trembling. "It was a mistake, sir. We were just doing our job." Roger shook his head, his expression filled with disappointment and a hint of sadness. "A mistake like this could have ended much worse. You're lucky it didn't. But understand this, there are consequences for actions like yours." Within minutes, the flashing lights of internal affairs vehicles approached the scene. The officers' once arrogant demeanor had dissolved, replaced by raw fear and regret. They were led away, their heads hung low, knowing the gravity of what they had done. Dana watched them leave, her emotions a swirl of relief and sorrow. She had been wronged, and although justice was being served, the scars of the experience remained. Roger turned to Dana, his expression softening as he stepped closer to her. He placed a protective arm around her shoulders, his voice quiet and filled with empathy. "I'm so sorry you had to go through that," he said, his eyes locking onto hers, filled with genuine remorse. "I promise you, this won't happen again." Dana looked up at him, her eyes glistening with unshed tears, a small but heartfelt smile forming on her lips. "Thank you for coming, Roger," she whispered. "I didn't know what else to do." "You did exactly the right thing," Roger assured her, his tone gentle but firm. "And now, they will face the consequences of their actions. It's time people learned that no one, not even those in uniform, is above the law." Together, they turned and walked away, Roger's arm still protectively around Dana. The crowd that had gathered parted silently, a powerful reminder hanging in the air. Justice must be served, and no abuse of power would go unchecked. It was a day the people of Greenwood wouldn't soon forget, a day when accountability was demanded and true justice delivered. As Dana and Roger walked away from the scene, the murmurs of onlookers filled the air. The people of Greenwood had just witnessed something deeply significant, a powerful reminder that no one, not even those in uniform, was above the law. Dana held her head high, her resolve unbroken. She was determined that this incident would not define her, but instead be a catalyst for change. That evening, as the sun set over Greenwood, the story spread rapidly. Families gathered around dinner tables, and neighbors met in community centers, discussing what had happened. It was more than just an incident. It was a wake-up call. The conversations were serious, charged with the realization that the balance of power could only be maintained if everyone, regardless of their position, was held accountable. The people debated the responsibilities that came with authority, the dangers of unchecked power, and the courage it takes to stand up against injustice, even when it's uncomfortable. The next day, Roger faced the press, standing tall before the cameras. His voice was steady, each word deliberate and filled with purpose. What happened yesterday was unacceptable, he began, his eyes unwavering. No one should ever be judged based on their appearance. We hold our officers to the highest standards, and when they fall short, they will be held accountable. Justice is not selective, and neither is our responsibility to uphold it. The press conference became a turning point for Greenwood. It sparked conversations that had long been overdue, about racial profiling, about the importance of accountability, and about the essential role of empathy within law enforcement. Roger's firm stance made it clear. Even those in power must answer for their actions, and no one was exempt from the standards of decency and respect. Dana watched from the sidelines, pride swelling in her chest. She was proud of Roger for his unwavering stance, but she also knew that this was only the beginning. True change would require more than a single moment of reckoning. It would require consistent effort, honest conversations, and the collective will of the community. Yet, as she watched people listening intently, their expressions filled with hope and determination, she felt a glimmer of optimism. This was a step forward, a necessary step toward building a Greenwood where fairness and justice were not just ideals, but everyday realities. Thank you for staying with us until the end of this powerful story. It's moments like these that remind us of what truly matters: justice, accountability, and empathy. No one, regardless of who they are or where they come from, should ever face mistreatment or prejudice. It's our collective duty to stand up for what's right, even when it feels challenging, even when the world seems indifferent. Imagine yourself in Dana's shoes. How would you have felt? How would you have reacted to such an unjust situation? Would you have had the strength to remain calm, or would the fear and frustration have overwhelmed you? These are the moments that reveal our true character, and they are a call to action for all of us. If you've ever witnessed or experienced something similar, we'd love to hear your story. Share it with us in the comments below or send us an email. Your voice matters, and your story could inspire others. If this story struck a chord with you, if it moved you or made you think differently, please take a moment to like this video and share it with others. Together, we can amplify these stories of courage, justice, and empathy. Don't forget to subscribe to Life Story 999 for more stories that challenge us, make us think, and inspire us to be better. Every story has the power to make a difference, and we hope these tales spark conversations that lead to real change. Remember, each one of us has a role to play in creating a community that's just, fair, and kind. It doesn't take a position of authority to make a difference. It takes a heart willing to act, a voice willing to speak, and a spirit determined to stand up for others. Let's be the change we wish to see, and let's hold each other accountable in the pursuit of a better tomorrow. Thank you once again for watching. We hope this story inspires you to take action in your own life, to stand up when it matters most, and to always choose empathy. Stay strong, stay kind, and we'll see you in the next story. Have a wonderful day.